Welcome to the PM Benchmark Reading Assessment Resource Training. I am Jeanette McKenzie, the National Director of Research and Teacher Training at Nelson. I'm what you are. I'm an educator with probably a lot older than most of you are. This is my 46th year in education. And I've been, a principal, a consultant, a teacher, elementary and secondary, certainly an author, worked at Teachers College and at the faculty and at the Ministry of Education. So lots of experience, but my passion certainly is literacy. And so I'm hoping that that experience that I've had will help you understand how to deliver the PM Benchmark resource, how to work on analyzing it, and then how to use that for future instruction. So let's get underway. The way we've organized these videos is starting off video 1, which is the one we'll be talking about right now, is getting to know the PM Benchmark Kit. The second video will be learning to actually use the assessment tools. The third video will be, now that you've delivered the assessment tools, how do you analyze the data you've collected? And then the last video will be, how do you use that data then to plan for the daily instruction in your classroom? So just a note that at the end of each video, we will be pausing the video and then asking you to go away and do a little bit of homework and come back prepared for the next video. So let's start with the first in the series, getting to know your PM benchmark. So our goal as educators is really to build successful readers. And in order to do that, we really want to make sure that our students have the skills and the processes and the reading behaviors to be confident readers and to see themselves as readers. In order to do that, we have to make sure that our students have the appropriate reading materials and that we really understand what their strengths and weaknesses are as readers. And that's really the purpose of the PM Benchmark Kit. It will help us as teachers to understand exactly what the students' strengths are and what their weaknesses are. In other words, what are the areas that we really need to work on instruction with those students. And then lastly, that information from the PM Benchmark Kit and from our ongoing observation of students will allow us to select appropriate instructional material. This video will focus on getting to know your PM Benchmark Kit. It's essential that you really understand the assessment tools and the procedures before you begin to administer the tools. So what will be assessed? When you use the PM Benchmark Kit, you will be able to assess the following things: the student's reading behavior and skills, their fluency in reading, their ability to retell, and their ability to answer comprehension questions. The reading assessment tools will allow you to look at the student's reading behaviors and skills. And by reading behaviors and skills, we mean you'll have an opportunity to observe how the student uses print conventions. So in other words, do they understand how print works, how text works, how books work, how sentences work? You'll also have an opportunity to look at their recognition, their automatic recognition of high-frequency words. Are they using alphabet and letter sound relationships? Do they understand phonological awareness? Are they using the cueing systems? In other words, are they using the cues such as meaning, such as structure, and such as visual information? Do they use self-monitoring and cross-checking as they're reading? And what problem-solving strategies are they using? The second thing the PM Benchmark assessment tools will allow you to observe is a student's reading fluency. In other words, do they read aloud effortlessly? Do they recognize the majority of the words automatically? And when they come to words that they don't know, are they able to decode them fluently? How are they processing visual information? How are they grouping words into appropriate phrasing? And are they reading at a rate that's appropriate to support meaning? In other words, they're not reading too quickly to lose meaning, and they're not reading word by word, which also affects their comprehension. Third, we'll be looking at retelling. And so retelling, when a student has read a text and retells it back to you, it's an essential part of comprehension. It really allows you to gain insight into how well the student has gained meaning. So by them retelling you facts or events in their own words, and the structure and organization that they use to tell it will really allow you to have a glimpse into the student's comprehension. Are they really understanding what they're reading? And then lastly, you'll see in the PM Benchmark Kit, we really also need to look at comprehension. So the fact that a student can decode words and perhaps even read fluently is not always an indicator that they actually comprehend. So there are students out there who are very fluent readers and very good decoders, but not good comprehenders. And so we also want to take a look at, does the student really indeed understand? So retelling is one indicator, and the other is by asking students comprehension questions. So you'll see when you have an opportunity to look more closely at the PM benchmark assessment, that you'll see comprehension questions at various levels. So we'll be asking them those lower level literal questions, the inferential questions, and then the critical questions and vocabulary questions. So how does the PM benchmark help? Well, it allows you to identify the student's instructional level for reading or the student's independent level for reading for both fiction and nonfiction. It allows you to identify the knowledge, skills, and strategies that students are using when they encounter text for the first time. It allows you to assess the student's fluency and to determine their comprehension level at both a literal level and at a higher level thinking. So what does the PM benchmark allow you to do? Well, first and foremost, it allows you to capture the student's reading behavior. So when you analyze the assessment tools, you can easily see the student's strength in terms of their reading skills and strategies, problem solving, and to identify the weaknesses they have as readers. It allows you to monitor where students are going in terms of their progress. So where are they the first time you take a benchmark, and where are they somewhere along the line? What strategies and skills have improved? Which ones still need further instruction? It allows you to guide your program. In other words, what are you going to do every day in your classroom with these students based on your analysis of the tools? It allows you to determine the level of difficulty of reading materials that students will need. It allows you to organize your classroom in terms of guided reading groups. It will help you determine which students need similar level texts and which students need similar types of instruction. And lastly, it will provide you with information that you can share with your parents and teachers and present that data for class and school accountability. So now we'll look at the components of the kit. The bulk of the kit is made up of the 46 level texts. Some will be little books and some will be cards, the higher levels being cards. You'll also have a teacher's resource book. The kit also contains a student record for each of the texts, and these student records are also available on the CD that you'll find inside the front cover of your teacher's guide. So you can either photocopy the student record sheets or print them directly from the CD. You'll also find in the kit a procedures card, which is really a short version of what you'll find in the teacher's guide on how to actually deliver the assessment tools in the PM benchmark kit. And lastly, also inside the front cover of your teacher's guide, there is a professional development DVD. So this DVD will give you an opportunity to see teachers actually using the assessment tools in the PM benchmark kit. So let's look at each of the components in a little more detail. So first of all, we'll look at the level text. So as we mentioned previously, there are 46 level texts. Some of them are actual little books and some of them are cards as you move up to the higher levels. So the text types are identified, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And know that in levels 1 to 14, it's a fiction text, and then from levels 15 to 30, it's fiction and nonfiction text. So how have the texts been leveled? Well, as you probably are aware, the PMs are probably the most carefully leveled reading materials anywhere. And so the reading levels are really determined by looking at factors such as the concept load, the vocabulary, the sentence structure, and the text types. At the higher levels, in addition to the factors that we've just mentioned, we've also used the Fry readability formula as an additional check into readability. So why level text? So we know that material that can be read with 90% accuracy or above in terms of word recognition is important for instruction and for independent reading. So we also want to make sure that by using level text, we have material that the student can read with comprehension as well as word accuracy. And we know as educators that any text that is too hard really hinders success in reading. So when that happens, when the text is too hard, the student cannot use the processes that they already are familiar with, and the reading breaks down, and often the student becomes discouraged and doesn't see themselves as a reader. Teachers must know the instructional level of readers if we're going to support the student's development of successful reading strategies.
Everyone.
We'll now look at some of the characteristics of the level text. We'll begin with vocabulary. Fluency and thus comprehension are affected by the bank of sight words we possess. So if we must continue to stop reading to decode words, it does interfere with our comprehension. We'll now look at some of the characteristics of the level text, beginning with high-frequency words. The 13 words that you see below on the slide make up 25% of what children encounter in reading up to the end of grade 3. It's important that children begin to automatically recognize these 13 words as soon as possible. As students move up in the levels of text, the number of high-frequency words increases. The chart below shows you some examples of the high-frequency words that students encounter as the text level increases. Sometimes we call these popcorn words because these are the words that keep popping up in their reading. At levels 1 to 14, most essential high-frequency words have been selected and embedded in the text. At levels 15 to 20, important and essential irregular high-frequency words such as contractions, past tenses, suffixes, and prefixes are included in the text. At levels 21 to 30, by the end of level 22, most of the common words have been introduced in the text. So in these levels, many multisyllabic words, technical vocabulary of nonfiction, and much more sophisticated verbs, adverbs, and adjectives are used in the text. We'll also be looking at in the level text the sentence structure. So in levels 1 to 14, the text use very short and simple pattern text. And so the pattern text is really an important part of these early levels. Levels 15 to 20, you'll see that the text sentences become more complex in terms of their structures. So we'll be using more sophisticated conjunctions, punctuation, things like relative pronouns. In levels 21 to 30, we'll start to use a clause structure, so 2 or more clauses, adverbial phrases, sentences that follow different sentence patterns, such as inverted sentences. Another characteristics that we'll examine about the level text are the text structures. So at levels 1 to 14, all of the texts are fiction. And you'll notice that they use, especially at the earliest levels, repetitive sentence structures, their fictional recounts, and their narratives. This is a very common structure pattern for students and one that they can easily recognize, that of story structure. Stories that have beginnings, middles, and ends. Stories that have problems and solutions. There are no nonfiction texts included at these levels, and the reason for that being the necessity of the very fine grading and leveling of the text. And if we include nonfiction texts, then the inclusion of technical vocabulary, the kind of vocabulary that you typically meet in nonfiction texts, will not allow the very fine grading of the text. So for example, when you think about early texts, simple words, like mom or words like dad, are common words in the student's vocabulary. When you move to nonfiction texts and you start to talk about things such as photosynthesis, or you talk about machines, those are not typically everyday words in the text, and they really do affect the text level. So once again, levels 1 to 14, all fiction texts. When we take a look at levels 15 to 20, you'll see that there's one fiction and one nonfiction at each level. And at levels 15, the text structures are description, information, report, and procedural text. When you look at levels 21 to 30, there's also 2 texts, one fiction and one nonfiction. And now the types of structures has been expanded. So you'll still see descriptions, report, procedurals, but now added to that will be expositions, explanations, and discussions. Pages 8 and 9 in the Teacher Resource Book provide you with an overview of all of the texts available in the kit. Let's look at a particular book and see the information provided. Each text will identify for you the reading level, so the treasure hunt puzzle, it's level 16, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and the treasure hunt puzzle is nonfiction, and the type of text. So this particular book is a recount procedural.
So let's talk a little bit about the concepts that you're going to find within each of the texts. And we do know that in addition to reading behaviors and reading strategies and reading skills, one of the factors that affects our ability to read a text is our prior knowledge. So the knowledge that we bring to make meaning for the text. So at the earliest levels, at the very beginning levels in the PM Benchmark Kit, you'll see that those books basically are texts that deal with the students looking at themselves, their siblings, and their immediate environment in an egocentric way. Because we do know that that's what students at that age level are really all about. It's very egocentric, about me, about my family, about where I am locally. At the earlier levels, so just beyond the earliest levels, we know that students begin to understand things like the concept of time, a little bit about distance, a little bit about place, that they start to explore situations, new situations that might be a little bit of a challenge to them. So what you'll see at these levels is that we'll be really kind of expanding the environment and the experiences of the students. At levels 21 to 30, these texts are much more challenging and really demand that the student think a little bit beyond the text. In other words, thinking about making generalizations, things about presenting their own point of view.
Now we will look at the teacher's resource. It will be helpful if you have your teacher resource and follow along with us. Inside the teacher's resource, you will find specific information on how to use each of the components of the assessment tools. You will find out how to analyze the information and how to plan for future instruction. You will find most useful completed examples of the student record forms at the back of the teacher's guide. There's also a section with frequently asked questions, and perhaps some of the questions that you have will be addressed in this section. There is also a CD available inside the front cover that will provide you with printable student forms. Pages 10 to 15 in your teacher's resource will help you to become familiar with the characteristics of the text at the various reading levels. So the pages that are shown here are for reading levels 1 to 14. We'll identify for you the characteristics of the text based on the concepts included in the text, the high frequency words, the sentence structures, and the text types. Levels 15 to 20 are described in a similar manner, again identifying for you the characteristics of the text in terms of concepts, high frequency words, sentence structure, and text types. You'll find the same information for levels 21 to 30, and I strongly recommend that you really familiarize yourself with the differing characteristics at the various text levels.
Then if you take a look on pages 18 to 23, this will really clearly define for you what is the purpose of the PM Benchmark Kit. So it will tell you what does it provide and why does it include procedures of taking a reading record, retelling, comprehension, and fluency. So it really gives you that background information about what is the PM Benchmark Kit all about. And then pages 24 to 27, it really walks you through the procedures. So it's step by step. How do you deliver the assessment tool? So it will walk you through each one. How to take the reading record, how to take a retelling, how do you look at fluency, and how do you ask the comprehension questions. And then the next part of the TR, pages 28 to 30, will really tell you once you've delivered those tools, then how do you go about analyzing them? And again, it's step by step. You'll see lots of visual examples to help you understand that. But also know we're going to go through all of this in the following videos. You'll also see on pages 32 to 39 in your teacher's guide, it will give you recommendations for future development. So in other words, once you've delivered the assessment tools, recorded them, and analyzed them, the important thing really now for the day-to-day classroom is what do I do now? So I know this information about the student. What books do I need to select for them? What instructional strategies do I need to focus on? And these pages will really help you with that.
Pages 33 to 34 will provide you with some recommendations for how to deal with students who are struggling with or need further instruction in their reading knowledge and skills. So for example, if you were working with a student at the early levels, levels 1 to 5, and you identified an area of weakness as being concepts about print, Then the right-hand side of the chart will offer you some suggestions for instructional strategies. So for instance, we might be doing things such as helping the student know how to hold the book the correct way, how to turn the pages front to back during guided reading and shared reading, and doing things such as recognize the front and the back of the book. Where does print start? And you'll see that for each of the levels. So the left-hand side of the chart always identifies the skill or knowledge strategy, and the right-hand side always provides you with suggestions for instruction. So pages 34 to 36 in your teacher's resource will provide you with recommendations for instruction for teaching strategies. So for example, again on the left-hand side, if you have a student who you've identified through your analysis is struggling with making self-corrections, then if you look on the right-hand side, it will offer you some suggestions. It will offer you things like prompts such as, did that word look right when you read it? Does it sound right? It'll offer you suggestions for self-correction such as, you found out what was wrong, what did you do? So I think you'll see that these particular suggestions are very useful as you plan for instruction. Page 37 in your teacher's guide identifies some of the problems students have with fluency, and again the right-hand side provides suggestions for instruction for improving fluency. And pages 38 and 39 will offer suggestions for those students who are struggling with either retelling or comprehension. I think you'll find these pages are the most useful pages because, well, yes, the PM benchmark does provide you with a reading level for the students. What perhaps is even more important is that it identifies for you the child's strengths and weaknesses, and that's what helps you plan for your daily instruction in the classroom. Pages 40 and 41 will provide you with the responses to the most frequently asked questions by teachers. On page 43 and following in the teacher's guide, you will see some examples of completed assessment records at different reading levels. This will give you an opportunity to see how the teacher has completed the various sections. So the reading record, you'll see the reading behaviors, the retelling, and the comprehension, as well as the summary sheet at the beginning. We've now finished looking at the teacher's resource, so we'll now proceed to examine the student record forms. I would suggest that you take a student record form from the kit and have it open and follow along as we look at each page. The student record form allows you to record the student's fluency, knowledge and reading skills, reading strategies, their retelling and comprehension questions. It's available in two formats. It's available in hard copy, such as the one you're looking at from the kit, and it's also available in the CD that's included in the teacher's guide. You'll find a PDF format that you can use to print further copies of the student record form. Page 1 of the student record form is the summary of the assessment. This is where you'll compile together all of the data that you collect as the student reads the text, as they retell, and as they answer the comprehension questions.
The first page is inside pages 2 and 3. This is really where you're going to take the reading record. So as the child is sitting next to you and reading, this is where you're going to be coding the behaviors. What is the child actually doing? And then on the page 3 at the bottom, this is where you're actually making some notations about what you've observed while the student was actually doing that reading.
On page 4 of the student record form is where you will record the student responses to the retelling. Page 4 provides you with the comprehension questions and also the opportunity to record the responses of the student. The kit also includes a record of student progress. This allows you to record where the student has begun as they progress over the years, and this record can be passed on to teacher over the years.
You'll also find in your teacher's guide in the pocket in the front the professional development DVD, which will contain background information on the resource. And perhaps most useful in here, you'll also find teachers actually using the assessment tools with students who are reading at levels 8, 11, 27, and 29. So this will give you an opportunity to see what reading looks like and the kind of assessments teachers are taking with students reading at various reading levels. So you might want to use this by yourself individually to take a look at it, and you know, it really helps you understand how to use the tools, but it also might be something you want to use in small groups as a discussion point. And then lastly, you'll find the procedures card. And so I think this is probably the most helpful tool to you, because what it really does is it really describes the procedures for taking using the assessment tools in a very brief synopsis. And one of the things you'll see when we move to the second video is that it's essential that there's consistency in the delivery of the assessment tools. So because it is an assessment tool, we want to make sure that each teacher using it is using it in exactly the same way. And so it will be important that we follow the steps the way they're laid out on the procedures card. So what you'll see in the procedures card on the inside spread are the steps. So step 1, using the running record. Step 2, taking the retelling. Step 3, the comprehension questions. And step 4, the analysis. And then we'll see when we move to video 2 that the back page, which is the page that actually has the chart to help you do the calculations, will be most beneficial to you.
Now it's time for your homework. As we said at the beginning of this video, that it was essential that you become familiar with the kit, the text, the procedures, the assessment tools. In order to prepare for the second workshop in this series, please familiarize yourself with the level text and the characteristics of text at various levels. Please read the teacher's resource, review the procedures card, and examine the student record form. Once you have familiarized yourself with the components of the PM Benchmark Kit, please join us for the next workshop in this series. In video 2, we will look at how to administer the PM Benchmark assessment tools. Bye for now.